Coming up in this episode of Finding Common Ground.
People saying they want a better life because when I travel, people look like I'm the rich American. I'm like, I'm the poor black boy from the dirt roads of South Carolina. But then I have to be careful to understand that what's little for me is big for someone else.
You know, we all learn by our mistakes. So allowing someone to do that in a safe environment is important.
There's no easy path. Nobody's going to hand you anything. There's not a golden ticket. The best things in life come from earning them on your own through hard work.
There are two sides to every coin.
How do we deal with racial issues when they affect relationships?
Finding common ground on all those issues that we come against.
There's black and there's white.
And I think as Christians, we have to learn how to get together because we're not in heaven.
I've met more interesting people just by God just bringing them in.
Republicans and Democrats.
But a lot of times when it comes to race and it comes to culture and it comes to perception, even as Christians, we don't always understand. We look at it through our lenses.
There's Bill.
I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland called Parma.
Any black people in Parma?
There was not one.
Not one black person,
Not
Bill?
one.
Come on,
Not
Bill.
one.
You got to have one.
Nope.
Token black person? A token?
And there's Odell.
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, public housing, single mom, divorced single mom with 4 kids. And I came up through segregation and all that kind of stuff.
If a black person drove through the town, the police would stop and escort them out.
Bill and Odell are finding common ground.
A part of what we have to do is listen to each other, find the common ground, and question, not questioning you like you're on a witness stand, but questioning you for better understanding. Father God, we just say thank you for your grace and mercy. Thank you for the ability to stand in the gap, what we call common ground, knowing quite well that everybody don't agree with what we say and everybody don't disagree with what we say. God, thank you for the leadership ability to stand and take the fiery dot, stand and understand when people shooting at you, whether it's in person or whether it's on the social nets, wherever it is. But it's okay, though, because we think that leaders have to take a stand, God, have to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. So, God, thank you for choosing us as we represent you. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you for the United States. Thank you for the United States for stepping in with Ukraine and Israel and supporting our brothers and sisters that are defending democracy. Let our politicians in D.C. get a backbone and start supporting them financially. Lord, we lift up our guest today, Kelly Hahn, and my buddy, Odell Cleveland. Amen.
Bill, you mentioned backbone, you mentioned leadership, you mentioned helping, supporting Ukraine and Israel and democracy. And later on, want to talk about all of that, but also democracy in the United States of America. But right now, you know, we have a leader in the room. And I remember last night, though, we sat and talked. And we were shared some information. How did that work for you last night, Bill?
You know, we were at the temple last night, and they had a private showing, I guess, that you could call to community leaders on raw footage of the attack. They had body cam footage from the Hamas terrorists and a lot of other footage. And I think they said there was 139 bodies that they showed, which was about 10% of the people that got killed. So I want to do a show on that because it was very impactful. And I think we ought to bring either Lenny or one of the rabbis in to be with us and talk about that and the impact it had on us and what's going on in Israel.
I agree with you 100% because it was interesting that we had about a couple hundred leaders, community leaders in the room. And of course, in that room, we all don't agree on everything, but we do agree on humanity. Bill, we have a leader with us today. Can you introduce our leader, sir?
Sure. He's a good friend. His family's a good family friend.
I thought I was your only friend.
I have 2 now.
Okay. So you wouldn't got another black friend on me, Bill? Another black guy or what?
He's different. I don't know if he's black. He's definitely different. And no, his name is Kelly Hahn, and I got to meet him through his dad, Ron Hahn. We were trying to figure out the other day where we actually met, and I think it was my wife and his sister at Caldwell Academy because our kids were going there at the same time. So then that kind of morphed into it. And then we started realizing what a rich family they are. And they became great, great friends. And, it's one of those things Kelly was talking about earlier. They're friends that you don't see all the time, but when you see them, you're totally comfortable. And you can tell if you're going to get along. You travel with them. And I've traveled with Kelly, and it's a lot of fun. I can tell you that. Kelly's background, from what I know, and he'll give us a lot more information. Right now, he does furniture design, furniture manufacturing. He's an entrepreneur. He's done a lot of things. We're going to talk about how he made his first $1 million when he was 12.
Well, he's 12? Okay. This is going to be interesting.
It was legal, too.
Okay.
Kelly, come on into the show and introduce yourself.
First of all, it's great to be here. I have to say that it's weird hearing your own voice in a microphone.
Yeah, it takes getting used to.
It takes a little getting used to.
But you got a great voice for this.
Oh, I don't know. I listened to Odell. You had told me about this podcast, I guess, years ago. And as circumstances go, I just never got around to listening to it. And I had the great pleasure of having lunch with you and Lenny Samet and Odell. And just sitting with him, I was like, wow, now I really have to investigate this and see, what this is all about. And so it was wonderful because I probably sat and listened to over the course of the last week, maybe 3 hours or 4 hours of your podcast.
Wow.
And I was really just impressed. And I mentioned this before we started, that it's really neat to see you guys and your interactions. I got to see it at lunch, and like, you genuinely like each other and you enjoy each other's company. And so talking about issues and the many things that you cover, because I mean, let's face it, you guys cover tough topics, topics that need to be discussed, but you do it in such a sincere way that, if people could listen and witness this, if there was a larger audience that could see this, I think you accomplish what you're setting out to do, which is, kind of create common ground. So I was very impressed.
Well, thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here first and foremost. And, I don't know if would be considered a leader. If anything, I've kind of been a lone wolf.
I think people would agree with that.
There's some people that are natural leaders, and there's some people that just need to be left alone and they need to figure it out. And that doesn't mean that they can't get along in groups or work in settings where it requires group thought. For me, I've always been more of the feeling that I'm going to succeed, not necessarily on my own, or I'm going to fail on my own. And so if I rely on myself, then I only have myself to blame. I can't blame a team. I can't blame other people. Now, I need to preface this by saying that I've been surrounded by great people and great leaders. And so it's not as though I'm just out there doing it on my own with no help, with no access to brilliant minds and great people, and also fantastic partners and employees. But from the standpoint of kind of like, creating your own thing, that's always been where
who else has done that? You know who else has done that similar thing? Steve Jobs.
Well, yeah,
he's did his own thing, but he's surrounded by great people.
For sure. It's almost as though he was the conductor of an orchestra.
Amen.
And so the orchestra, they're individually playing their instrument, but the conductor is keeping everybody in rhythm and in flow. And those are the greatest leaders, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a story. Somebody asked him, he's being interviewed, and somebody wanted to know what kind of market research did he do for the iPhone? What was his budget and who did he use? And he said, we didn't do any market research. They said, what? You launched that without market? He says, no, I knew what the consumer wanted.
Yeah.
And I just made what the consumer wanted.
Yeah. Also, I do appreciate his philosophy, because his philosophy is that group thought is poison to the design process. That group thought, if you just take the sum total of a bunch of average ideas and put it into something, all you get is average. And I think he was the guy that was willing to come up with the idea, use the people, because I don't think he was the greatest designer or engineer, but he had the idea. And I don't think he sat in a room of people and said, help me create a great idea. I think he created the idea and then used those people to refine it, to make it better, to engineer it, to market it. But the idea or the basic principle for him is that group thought is poison, and a bunch of average ideas just create an average product. Right. And I think in his mind, he would rather like shoot for the stars and create something great, like the iPhone than just create something that's kind of average or just not really that spectacular. Though I don't really think that the world needs more average stuff. They need more great things. And I mean, for the longest time, Apple has kind of been at that pinnacle.
I'm going to switch gears here for a minute, and I'm going to get Odell to come in. How did you make your first million? And then how did you lose your first million?
So I took a giant leap of faith when I was 22 years old. I knew pretty early that I wasn't going to be the greatest employee. I had some circumstances.
That's an understatement.
I had some circumstances in my life, and I had a pivot. And my dad created businesses and sold businesses, was in the process of creating a new furniture business. And I was like, didn't have anything to do at the time. And he was like, do you want to come with me on this trip to Asia? And I had been to Asia in the past, but more as a tourist. And I did an exchange program in Japan, or exchange school program in Japan. So, I mean, I was familiar with Asia from a tourist standpoint, but not from the business standpoint. And this was going to be a purely business trip. And so I'll never forget that I was flying to Hong Kong, and I was flying by myself, and my dad was already there. And I landed, and in those days you landed early in the morning. And so I dropped off my stuff in the hotel, and I had been sleeping on the plane. So I was in the mood to go roam. So I dropped off my stuff and I went out, and it was the middle, like the middle of the day in Hong Kong, and there was people, and it was robust, and there was something going on there, something that I had not seen or felt anywhere else I've been, maybe besides New York City, but there was something going on there in Asia, and you could just feel the excitement and the enthusiasm. And I just wanted to be a part of it, and I didn't know how. And so I just made up my mind. I'm moving here. And
wow.
I didn't end up in Hong Kong, but nevertheless, the trip continued. And so I ended up in Thailand because my dad was doing like a range of trips. It was Hong Kong, South China, Guangzhou, up to Fuzhou, and then down to Southeast Asia. And he had a partnership with a furniture factory in Thailand. And so they were going to kind of be one of his partners in this new venture. And so I got a chance to have the same experience in Thailand. And in those days, it's different now. In those early days of furniture manufacturing and sourcing, because all the business was slowly but surely moving offshore, you did business through what they called agents. And the agents kind of represented the factories, and they were kind of responsible for bringing the American buyers and the American wholesalers over to Asia into the factories. And so I ended up meeting an agent there in Thailand that was part of the factory that my dad was going to visit. And we're instantly friends. And there was a connection. And he just didn't represent furniture factories. He represented any kind of manufacturing that existed in Southeast Asia at that time, which the majority of production for Southeast Asia in those days was not the United States market. It was mostly Japan and Europe. And so you would go into these factories. They could be manufacturing anything. It could be housewares. It could be, you mentioned candles earlier. It could be apparel. It could be furniture, but it was specifically marketed to Japan or to Europe. And I saw an opportunity. I was like, wow, this is, these designs are already existing. They're well thought out because the Japanese design is all about form and function. And same with Europe. They're always had just a little bit more refined approach to how they look at design. And I was like, these products with some small modification can be marketed in the US, but nobody has ever really done that, And so I got together with this other gentleman, and we put together a company, and we just started using each other's resources. He had a team in Asia that, could handle the exportation, could handle documents, could handle the banking. I had design as a background, and I had a wealth of knowledge of customers and potential customers. And so we kind of just put the peanut butter and chocolate together and made a
peanut butter and chocolate, not peanut butter and jelly. Okay, go ahead. See, This is different. Peanut butter and chocolate. All right.
That's my favorite. Can't help it. Sweet tooth. Yeah. And so we put it together, and we created a company, and immediately started just going to these factories, refining the designs, changing them, modifying them just in the slightest way that would make them more marketable to the US, and, sold them. And that was kind of
you were 22 when this happened.
22. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you got your first $1 million in the bank? What'd you think? Odell, have you seen $1 million in your checking account?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're going to learn.
It's funny. I'll tell you, I'm clearly trying to avoid this. I'll tell you. So I didn't grow up poor. I'll just throw that out there. Okay. But even though I didn't grow up poor, my family never let us feel like we were rich, but we were rich on experiences. My parents were really big on experiences more than things. And so, of course, we're all driven by money. And I always feel that anybody who says otherwise, they're probably not telling the truth. I mean,
you saw Odell hand me a check a few minutes ago, right?
Yeah. And to say that,
and I took it.
Everything that we do is driven by money is, that's not necessarily the case either. There's kind of a fair balance. But circling back, the first time we sold something and I got a commission check, and maybe it was $5,000, $6,000. I never felt so rich in my life as that first check. Like, I thought, like, it doesn't get any better than this. I mean, at that time, I was floating. And that's the magical thing about being in business for yourself and being an entrepreneur and taking chances and risks, and then the reward. And of course, the more that you get of that reward, the more you're able to do things and have nice experiences and things like that. So I'll just leave that $1 million
fair enough
question at that.
Well, it's interesting. You made me think about something. The first time that I felt that kind of excitement, and I don't know if it's pride, but just satisfaction that you did something, was the first time I actually bought for my company and owned it, a copy machine.
Yeah.
I've never owned a copy machine. I've always, in companies, but this was mine. And I went up and I actually hugged it.
Did you kiss the copy machine, Mr. Goebel?
No, I didn't go that far. I wasn't that close to it.
Good.
Go ahead, Odell. We've been monopolizing.
No. It's all good. It's interesting because, to Kelly's point, and Kelly, thank you. Kelly didn't grow up poor, and I grew up poor, and there's nothing wrong with being poor, but I enjoy not being poor. That's a better experience than being poor. But to Kelly's point, and his parents didn't allow him to understand, or didn't allow him to come up with a silver spoon in his mouth. So I say congratulations there. How do you do have children?
I do.
How do you allow your children not to be weakened by access and resources?
Oh, that's a great question. In some ways, the world has changed. And I think there is a bigger emphasis on fancy things and nice things. Social media is really promoting kids with Gucci bags and all this fancy stuff, at a much, much earlier age. That was usually things that you acquired, in adulthood after you've accomplished something. And so that's tough. It's really tough. I don't know if I have the answer, except for I try to follow the same philosophy that I was brought up with my parents, which is my kids are very rich on experiences. I mean, they've traveled, they've experienced and seen life in other places. And of course, I mean, they have nice things. And I mean, it's not as though we've kept them from access from nice things, but maybe just in tough question.
Well, I think from an outside observer,
because I can't say that I did it exactly like my parents did. I mean, of course,
none of us do.
Yeah, I mean,
none of us do.
You use it as kind of a barometer, or you use it for a guidance. But maybe I haven't quite done it as well as they did it. Maybe I should say.
Well, it's interesting from an outsider looking in at your family unit, which is your mom and your dad and your wife and the other relatives. You've got a village.
Oh, that's for sure.
And that village helps you with the kids, keeping them grounded.
Oh, 100%. You guys in your podcast, I've listened to you talk about this concept of privilege. And from that standpoint, I am 100% stand on top of the mountain of privilege, because I have had the opportunity to grow up in a family with a mom and a dad who've been married for, like, I think it's, 50, going on 50 years, if not 50,
wow. Okay.
50 plus years. And then also, I've had them, or my father as a role model for business, and my mom for like a moral compass. And so for that, I hit the jackpot in life just with that. And that is privilege because there's not kids that get that experience. And so I think my kids have seen that or have that. I mean, I'm here for my kids. I'm there for them, but they have to, at the same time, they have to go do things and accomplish things on their own.
But, it's interesting you would say that because a lot of times it's like our friend Marty Codis, we call him the Maverick. I believe because I was in corporate sales, I never started a company overseas. But when I travel, and you mentioned something that resonated a lot, certain cities, I remember going to Jerusalem a lot of times, or going to London or Paris or New York or Vegas or LA. Different cities have different energy, even Charleston or Savannah, where I like to go when I'm more of a historian type mood. But you mentioned the energy that you never felt before, because sometimes when we travel abroad, we are the arrogant rich Americans. And we complain about a lot of things in other cultures. The room's not large enough. There's this, and everything else. How did you deal with the culture at a young age without comparing it to what it should be versus what it was? And you said something. You said, I looked at it and I saw opportunity. I didn't complain about it. I saw opportunity. I saw design. I saw form and function. You saw all that. Where did you get your vision from?
Well, first and foremost, I agree with you. Every place that you visit has a different energy. And I love to travel. To this day, I love to travel. One of the neatest experiences, I'll digress for a second. Back in the mid 90s to the early 2000s, the cheapest way to get a business class or first class ticket was to fly around the world.
Okay.
No,
you talking my language now, partner.
Right. And so
I love Comfort Plus. I can't always afford first class, but I'm in the Comfort Plus.
Okay, so I'm 6'4" and
yeah, exactly. There you go.
I'm a big guy.
Right.
And so I'm not.
But you're better looking than Bill, though. You're better looking than Bill. You have more hair than Bill. We go with the hair thing. You have more hair than me and Bill. You win the hair award. Go ahead, my friend.
Listen, I'm a hand model. So I'm not. I've heard you guys in your previous podcast getting this argument, Odell.
The good looking black guy. I'm the best looking black guy in the studio today. The best looking black guy in the studio today.
100%.
There you go.
But coming back, the cheapest
way
way
to
get
in here, folks. It's getting real deep. I'm going to go get some hip boots.
Yeah. It was to fly around the world, and so the rules of the ticket were you had to go in one continuous motion. You could still go a little bit north and south, but you had to go, if you went east, you had to continue going east. And so my wife and I, we would buy these tickets when we would come back to the US, whether we were coming back for furniture markets or for holidays or whatever the case may be. We would buy these around the world tickets. And so we would stop in places that we had never seen or my wife had never seen. And each place that we stopped over the course of a decade just was new and interesting and unique and had a different energy and a different vibe. I mean, you talk about London, Paris, Rome, all these places, there's nothing universal about them.
Well, hold on a minute, Kelly. So let me interject something because being the black guy, I have to interject something.
Okay.
So you said to your wife, yo, baby, if you come with me, I'll show you the world. Kelly, was that the pickup line?
No.
Was that the pickup line? Because you said you convinced your wife to say, we're going to get a ticket and we're going to fly around the world.
On the contrary.
You haven't met his wife.
Okay.
She rules the roost.
Okay. All right.
He's a big guy. She's a little lady. Doesn't matter, man.
250-pound finger.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. But I was just wondering, what was the pickup line? We go around the world, baby.
No, it really wasn't. It was like, she's like more economical. So she's like, well, if this is the cheapest way to get home, then that's how we're going.
Oh, you sound like my wife. Oh, okay. I thought that sounded like my wife. All right.
Is the most economical way.
Well, let me ask you, how much does it cost to go around the world?
So in those days, around the world ticket was around $3,500.
Oh my goodness, that's cheap.
Well, and it stayed that way. Tickets have stayed static for a long time, depending on the season. But after COVID, like now it's crazy.
Was it Pan Am or would you fly on?
United. So and so I made it to I was at 3 million miles on United right at the start of the pandemic. Of course, travel just stopped. It stopped. And so, I mean, I was averaging, between 150 and 200,000 miles a year in travel. And so you can get to 3 million pretty quickly. But then I switched. I don't want to turn this into a anti-United, but I became an American guy and I'm so happy.
Yeah, I'm American. I got 1 million miles on American. Hey, speaking of that, your travel, he was one of the first guys to have COVID here in the United States. Tell him about that and what you did with the Baptist Hospital.
Well, yeah, it was interesting because I just thought I had a cold. This was early in the pandemic, and so I was out and I was playing tennis, which is kind of my passion, and I couldn't catch my breath. I was like, something's up. So I was asking one of my doctor friends that I play tennis with, do you think something's wrong? Like, do I have sports induced asthma or something like that? And he's like, no, you probably just have a cold. Stop whining and start playing. Okay. And it lasted for like,
did he charge you for that recommendation?
No. School of Hard Knocks. Shut up and play. And so, it went on for about a week and just like cold-like symptoms, just not feeling very well. And then, you had started hearing about this mysterious cough and something going on in Asia, and it was starting to gain some momentum. And I got better, but by some way or somehow I gave it to my son, and he got really sick. He got full-blown pneumonia. And of course, they weren't thinking this is COVID. This is just like, he's got pneumonia. Let's treat it. So fast forward 2 or 3, 4, 5 months, and COVID is really starting to take off. And so my partner and I, we're headed off to Asia into the headwinds of COVID, when everybody else, they were shutting down the shop and they were saying, we're ceasing to travel. There'll be no Asia travel. And, we're right there in the middle of it. Like, we're literally leaving Vietnam as they're shutting the country down. And so I came home, and again, I had like a little cough. And I was wondering, did COVID get me? Were we risking it all by going over there at so late, And I went and got tested, and we did the testing. They did the antibody test at the same time because this was kind of early. And they're like, you don't have COVID, but you had COVID.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because they had a test for that. It was in Winston-Salem. And so I got a few weeks later, I got a phone call and they said, can we continue to test your blood? And so they continued to test it. I guess they were looking to see how long maybe natural immunity might last. So, yeah. So now I laugh because I think I've had COVID like 5 times, 6 times. It's just an inconvenience.
Okay. So you said, hey, the bionic COVID man and everything like that. But let me ask a question though. Go back to, you talked about, if you will, revisit the cities. You were saying different cities have different energy.
For sure.
People don't understand that, but what did you get from the different energies, and how did you know when you're doing business around the world, how do you know where's a good business person, a business opportunity versus where you're going to get scammed or whether you're going to get taken advantage of?
Well, I mean, take for instance, like the difference between London and Rome. Rome is like a city of chaos. There's motorbikes and people moving at high speed. And then you go to London and it feels very buttoned up and very proper. And I think that the feeling mimics the people, right? And so, the English are very prim and proper, and the Italians are very like, hey, you're sitting by yourself at this table. Come join us. Come sit with us. You look like somebody who it might be fun to visit with. I can't tell you how many times I've been in places like that. Either I'm by myself, which is a rarity because I hate to travel by myself. That's like my least favorite thing in the whole world to do. But they'll invite you. But the only place that you experience that are like in the London pubs, but not in a business situation. If you're at a proper business location for dinner or lunch and you're sitting by yourself, you're going to be sitting by yourself.
Yeah. High tea. We've done that.
Yeah.
But you go to a pub in London and you really see the culture of the English.
We remember seeing all the people outside the pub because they can't smoke in it. There was hundreds of people outside and they're all socialized. It was so cool to see. You and I traveled to Medellin, Colombia. And I'd like you share your experience with that with our guest.
Oh, I mean, Medellin was so cool. I mean, of course, you guys have watched Narcos, right?
Yes.
I mean, Pablo Escobar.
It's his home. That was his home.
I mean, you're cool when you can make killing people and selling drugs like seem fun. Like, I mean, Pablo Escobar. And I mean, so when you think about Medellin, you think about that. And we went down there, of course, searching for outdoor furniture.
Right.
And I was amazed. I mean, you always hear, it's funny because I don't care if it's Juarez, Mexico, where I spent plenty of time, or down in Brazil where I've spent time. There's dangerous places. We talked about this at lunch. There's dangerous places in Greensboro. I mean, I can find trouble in Greensboro just as easily as you can get into trouble in Medellin. But no, I thought it was amazing. I thought, what a neat city, and great restaurants and fun culture, fun people. Good energy. It's completely counterintuitive or counter to what you would think it would be. You think most people or most Americans would think it's just a backwards country, and basically all they're doing is agriculture and pushing drugs into the United States. And on the contrary, it's a very thriving country. I was completely blown away with it.
So when you switch it a little bit, but not really, when you look at the southern borders of the United States of America, and many people say that they're coming here for work opportunities. Obviously, you've traveled around the world. Bill, you've done a lot of work there. Not asking you to judge, but labor and opportunity is very important. What do you think about people coming here to work, or people saying they want a better life? Because when I travel, people look like I'm the rich American. I'm like, I'm the poor black boy from the dirt roads of South Carolina. But then I have to be careful to understand that what's little for me is big for someone else. We live in a very large house, just me and my wife now, because we're empty nesters. So what do you need a house with 2 master bedrooms, about 3-4 bathrooms, and all this stuff, and it's just 2 people? And you think in America we just overdo it, or that's just our lifestyle. So we don't say to people, don't come over here, but then we say, who's gonna do the work? Who's gonna pick? Who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do that? So what's your thoughts on that? Because obviously you've dealt with a lot of different people from a lot of different perspectives, and you've seen poverty in other countries. You've seen wealth in other countries. And the same to you, Bill, after our guest responds.
Well, we all came here by some route, right? None of us, our families are traced here.
Right.
And so we all came, whether, it's our great grandparents, whatever, for opportunity. So everybody's seeking opportunity. In the early days of immigration, we were a small country and we needed immigration. Now we're, I don't know, what's the population in the United
Over
States?
350 million.
350 million. Now we don't need an influx of immigration to create a country. So, but you still have people wanting to come here for opportunities. I see it every day, or I see it frequently, because we have a manufacturing plant in Tijuana, Mexico, and I go there probably 2 or 3 times per month. And, Tijuana is a border town. And so that's, you hear
that outside of San Francisco, right?
No, outside San Diego.
San Diego. The reason I say that, I went to Center for Creative Leadership once, and they had a place there. And one night the guy said, hey, you want to go across the border, to Tijuana. And I'm like, I'm black. I don't need to be going across the border to Tijuana. And you all are drinking. I don't drink. I think I'm going to stay right here. So that's all. So keep going. I'm sorry. Yes.
So I grew up in Southern California, going to Tijuana for fun. So, but that's a whole nother topic.
That might be a whole nother show.
That's where unsupervised kids went when their parents were out of town. And
I've been there a couple times.
But no, so it's a border town, and it's people looking for access into the hope that is America. And so I understand it. I think that maybe my position on it is a little bit unique, in the sense that I say, if you want to come here and work and do whatever the jobs that you're coming here to do, no problem. Just register. I mean, when I worked in a foreign country, I had to get a proper business visa. I had to register. I had to do everything in a proper way. I wasn't just there living, coming and going. I was identified. I think they call them can't remember what the term was, but it's like an alien visitor or something. Okay. It translates something like alien visitor, but you were registered. And so I've always felt like, let these people come, but just register, pay your taxes, do whatever, use the systems. If you're bringing your children, let them go to the public schools, do whatever you need, have access to what we have, but just register and do it not like cloak and dagger, but, in like a proper way. And so I always felt like there was a way to regulate it. Like, don't stop people from coming here for opportunity, but at least figure out a way to do it in a way where they're coming here and they have to live in the shadows. To me, that's just really a crime against humanity, that these people come here and they have to like be fearful that they could be caught and sent back away and, uprooted from their kids who may have been born here.
Right. Bill, your thoughts?
Well, you made me think about something, Kelly. We went and did a bourbon trail trip with my buddies, the Smoking Jews and one Gentile.
Okay.
And we had a driver who was from Costa Rica, and young guy. And I was sitting in the front with him talking, and I said, do you get to go back to your country much? And he goes, no, I would be afraid to go back because there's, I forgot the terminology, but it's one of those foreigners that are children that have been brought up or something. There's some reason that they can't go back because they won't be able to get back into the country. So they have to stay here. And I said, well, do you have family here? He goes, yeah, my aunts and uncles and my sister just moved up. And I said, oh, really? Why did you leave? And he said, well, the gangs. He said, they were so bad that my parents sent me up here to be safe. And I said, is that why they sent your sister? And they said, well, my sister was walking down the street in Costa Rica one day and a gang member saw her, and she's a beautiful young lady. And he said, that's my wife. And he just kidnapped her. And she was gone for 3 years.
Wow.
Before they found her. And when they found her, they brought her up here. I said, well, man, how is she doing? She says, well, she's struggling, but she's in a safe place now.
So, Kelly, with all your travel around the world, with all your access, would you, if you had to, as a second choice, I know America is your first choice, as a second choice, which country would you reside in?
Oh, easy. We talked about this a little bit at lunch. The first time I went to Australia, I was like, wow, this place is so dynamic. I mean, I grew up in California, grew up surfing, outdoors, playing sports, and the culture is so similar to ours, very free-spirited, very just fun people. Or South Africa. In the old days when we were traveling, the first time I went to Cape Town, I was like, wow, this place is really amazing. I mean, it's a coastal town. It has beaches and a vibrant feel to it. And it's gotten less safe. So I would say 100%, I would say if I couldn't live in America and I had to be expatriated somewhere, definitely Australia. But I love living in America. I despite its flaws and its mistakes in the past, there's still, to me, it still resonates with me having traveled all around the world. It still feels like a place where the dream is still alive. Like you can start off with an idea and you can reach your dreams. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist in other places, but the familiarity of it to me, having been in other places, it still seems that there is a reason why people still want to get here. Right.
Well, you've accomplished a lot in your personal life. You've accomplished a lot in your professional life. What's there left for Kelly to accomplish? What other mountains are there for you to climb?
Well, I mean, our business is always changing and the dynamics of business is constantly changing. And so I'm not sure that I can't really answer the question what still lies, because in some ways I haven't accomplished everything that I set out to do. But that being said, maybe that's the reason why they're goals and you just keep reaching for them and you may or may not attain them, but it's something. It's the trophy at the end of whatever you're searching for. But, I'll use my dad as an example. He's 81 years old, okay. Almost 82, and he still works every day. Maybe not with the vigor and the zest of when I saw him when he was in his 40s or 50s, but he works every day because it still gives him meaning. It's still
a reason to get out of bed.
I mean, You can only play so much tennis or have lunches with friends and things like that. It's still like he still enjoys seeing our successes, our team successes, my successes, my brothers, my family, our successes. And he also likes still being involved. And I like having him involved because, I mean, the knowledge that he has and the experiences he has, they're all relevant. I don't care at what point you're in your life, if you have a mentor or somebody who has experienced it maybe 20 times, having that asset in your pocket is brilliant.
But your dad had the wisdom to know that you were different. Because you said, Odell, I was different. And he asked me, do you want to come with me on this business trip?
Yeah.
He allowed you to be different. He supported you being different. And that had to make a big impact in your life.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everybody's path is different. And I don't think that there's one clear way of raising kids, but at least my parents, they had the vision that we're going to kind of let our kids go where they go, know, and make mistakes and do what you do and, hope that you learn from it and that, you use it as a lesson in life and you recover from it. So, yeah.
It's a good safety net. That's a good way to learn.
Yeah.
We all learn by our mistakes. So allowing someone to do that in a safe environment is important. I want to switch gears. I got something else for you. What are you doing now? I know you design for different, like East Elm, Rooms to Go, or Hard Rock.
Wait a minute. I thought he was recruiting Odell, the good-looking, slim and trim black guy, to be a model. He said he's a hand model. Bill, I'm trying to get to the point where I'm the face. I'm the face.
You want to be the face model?
I'm the face, Kelly. I'm the face of your next creation. What do you think my question about what new mountain? I was getting ready to say, hey, brother, look at me. Look at the talent is right in front of you.
It's clear.
Oh, it is getting
It's
deep.
undeniable.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, I don't know what I can say after that.
It's just fun to listen to him talk.
I know.
I mean, it's just really.
He's a Baptist pastor, and when he gets cranking, look out, just put the pulpit up and let him go. By the way, he's speaking Friday night.
Let me tell you a funny story. So my dad, once upon a time, he was very engaged in public speaking, and he would go all over the country to give talks. And it's funny because, and this is back in the day before the modern age of the internet, where you can put on a YouTube video and get inspiration. And I would walk into the room, and he would have on these preachers giving like their sermons. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you listening to? He was like, these guys know how to communicate. They know how to connect with their audience. They know how to keep their attention, and they know how to drive home a point, which is, as a public speaker, those are the key components of giving a good talk or a good speech. So, I mean, he would have on these sermons or these, whatever, are they sermons?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Some of them sermons, some of them public address announcement, because, certain preachers, we don't know.
But these guys, I mean, they could, if you just took off the pastor title and put them in a business, and they were going at the same topic with the same amount of passion and the same ability to connect and really get the people to listen, they could do anything. And clearly that moved him. And so he would listen to those guys from time to time as kind of inspiration for how to talk and connect to whoever the audience was for whatever he was talking about.
I would love to meet your dad one day.
Oh, he's a character.
Yeah, he is. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
He's a character.
What you were talking about with that, I used to watch that Rex Humbard or whatever his name was. He was on TV and I used to watch it. And I was born Catholic, and obviously he was not. My mom would walk in when I was watching. She says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "This guy's fascinating. His delivery, how he's delivering it, his passion."
Exactly.
And it was the charisma coming through a TV screen.
You could feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you agree or don't agree with whatever the message is, but the way they're bringing it is like,
you can't help.
You're engaged. You're listening.
Yep.
You have your attention.
Yep. And that's a key as well. I teach in my company, and what I find is the message isn't as important as how you make them feel. You make them feel that they're enjoying themselves and they're actually learning. So go back to these companies that you're working with, and what do you do now?
Well, we have two primary businesses now. We have a residential furniture business where we sell to the top 100 retailers in the country. And then we have a hospitality business, and we have contracts with the major hotel brands around the world and in the United States. And so those are our two main focuses. I'm primarily driving the creative component for both of the companies in different ways. We're still primarily, it's furniture based, whereas in my early days, it was across the boards. There wasn't anything I wouldn't look at. Now it's furniture based, and that's a tough business. It's a really COVID was a crazy time for furniture because the whole world was stuck at home, and they're looking at their ugly furniture, or they were, tired of being pent up in the same room, and they just needed a change. And so it drove this dynamic tidal wave of furniture purchasing, over the course of 2.5 years, even with just the huge amount of inflation that was in furniture and with shipping costs and things like that. people still bought. It didn't matter what price you put it at. And now we're kind of on the other side of that. It's like when the tidal wave comes and then the water goes back out to sea, and now you have to clean up the mess. We're in the clean up the mess phase of the furniture business. Now, fortunately for us, the opposite of that is happening with the hospitality business, whereas people still, I think after the fear of COVID was going to kill everyone and we were going to be wiped off the face of the earth and we could start traveling again, people started traveling again and they haven't stopped. And so that's been great for the hospitality side of our business. Actually, it's also been a curse, a blessing and a curse, because business has been so robust that hotels don't even want to stop and do a refurb on their properties because they can rent the rooms. Even if they have been slightly abused, they're just not in a huge rush because they've got high occupancy. And so they don't want to take rooms offline to refurb them. So we're kind of in a dynamic time in the furniture industry. But we love it. And I mean, it's like anything else in life. You have to figure out how to modify and change and become more efficient and use the skills that you've learned in these boom and busts. And so I still enjoy the furniture industry very much.
You're good at it.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you a question. Do you all do target audiences in your creativity or your creation and design of furniture? And what I'm talking about, African-American females who are big time professional breadwinners, making all the money in the world, who like nice quality furniture, but in an Afrocentric type design, more prints, just stuff like, do you all, not just pictures, I'm not talking about pictures, I'm talking about in design, because you mentioned that form and function. Do you ever target it from that perspective, or what's your thoughts on there?
Well, it's unique because furniture design has changed so much. Furniture design used to be, you could almost tell somebody's style by where they lived. And there's kind of been a furniture homogenization happening where it used to be in the Northeast had a distinguished style. The Southeast had a distinguished style. Florida had its own distinguished style. The Deep South and the West, each one, you knew where you were. I remember, a great mentor of mine, Sid Linger, who was just a brilliant designer, brilliant mind. He asked me a question. He said, "Do you know how they spell cherry in the Midwest?" And I said, Cherry. He said, "Nope, OAK, oak." And so that was like your first lesson, lesson number one. And if you're designing for this customer, it better be oak, and in this it better be cherry. And now there's, like I said earlier, there's just this kind of homogenization that's happened, and now style is pretty universal. And I mean, part of this is also can be I guess you would say that it's social media, because now everybody's tastes are seemingly starting to align, and also like these shows on TV that are promoting design and that are showing how people live. And so you have more access to seeing different styles. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I like that style. That feeling is what I like, or I would love my house to feel like this. But to come back to your original question of, are we marketing to a certain ethnicity? No. The second thing I learned from Sid Linger, and this is profound, and some people prescribe to it, others don't, which is the first rule of design is design for the masses, eat with the classes.
Explain that to me.
So the idea is that if you create something or design something that's for a small few, you'll sell some, but not in a great amount. And you're certainly not going to get rich doing that, or wealthy doing that, or build a company doing that. Conversely, if you build something that is more mass appealed, then there's a bigger breadth. You have the opportunity to sell more. So figure out how to get to that big fat middle where the world exists. And to be honest with you, as a designer, I have struggled with that in the past, because you heard earlier about my philosophy of I've always been willing to take more risk in terms of the design process and the products that we bring. And almost to the fault of being too early to the party, meaning that we're designing something that is going to work. The consumer is going to get there, but they're not there now. And so, but that's unique. And I mean, that's the beauty of the lesson in any business, which is, and I'll tell you, in furniture sales and furniture wholesaling is a unique business in the sense that, and we were talking about this at our lunch about the high point market. And so every market there's, hundreds or millions of square feet of showroom, and people bring their designs to the market in the hopes that the buyers from all over the world, from the United States, will come and they'll select that one product. And so the idea is to throw out as much product as you can, cast a big enough of a net that at the end of the market, you've captured. Your designs will be bought and purchased by the retailers. But if you use that philosophy and casting a big net, one of two things can happen. You can get lucky and have a big haul, or you can fail. And so most people and most manufacturers that I know, they typically, in the middle price points, in the commodity or in the middle, what we were talking about, they cast a very wide net. And maybe they'll sell 1 or 2 or 3 of those from 10 or 12.
Right.
So, that's not a big success rate. 3 from 12 is not like a great day. And so, but it's all about risk and taking chances and putting out product that will hopefully resonate with whomever your target is, and the buyer seeing that vision too. Yeah. And so the other thing that we do, and this is the part of the design process that I love, is talking about why. This is why we did this. This is how we did this. And this is what we were thinking about doing this. And then educating the buyer as to what our thoughts were in the design process, so that it may be like, oh, okay, now I understand. Now I get what they were trying to do, rather than just looking at it as a box with drawers and something place to stick things.
Put a story behind it.
A story behind it.
Exactly. Unbeknownst to the two of you, Odell is a designer of furniture. I know.
Really?
Yes. So
I didn't know that.
Are you for hire?
No. But what I designed was the
Odell Cleveland collection coming to you soon.
It's the Beverly Cleveland collection. You remember the old fashioned cedar chest?
Yes.
Where it was made out of cedar and you open it up and had like a green velvet inside of it. My great grandmother purchased one and I still have it. So what I did was went to a designer in High Point, asked him to design one for me, but cover it with velvet print, because I've specifically designed it for professional Black females, like I told you. And I asked some females to look at it, and they said, yeah, that's good. However, Odell, when you open it up, it'd be nice if it had some storage space inside. Mm-hmm. So I was able to put a kind of top on to open it, and they wanted certain type of hinges that shut slowly and high quality and all this kind of stuff. And I played with it, but I said, because one thing that I've learned growing up in South Carolina is that for a lot of poor Black people and poor people in general who worked in other people's homes, like my great-great-great-grandmother cleaned white folks' homes, that's what we say. And they wanted similar furniture that they saw in Miss Jones' home, whether it was a china cabinet or a cedar chest, anything like that. Well, today's professional Black woman is different. So when you look at the Sankofa bird or other type of furniture that resonates with them, or color or pattern texture that resonates with them, that's a market out there that's, I would say, untapped market. But that's just a good-looking Black guy who's been Black my whole life.
When did you do this?
Understand this? About 3 years ago.
Really?
I have the 2 samples sitting in a furniture manufacturer in High Point right now, and I was doing it, and then COVID hit. And then it was hard to get your hands on it. And then I was dealing with what the price point would be and how to ship it and everything, because it's more than just designing it. It's more than just designing it, as you know. So that's something that people are very much interested in. And I will send you gentlemen pictures because I know you all believe me, but just in case for verification, that helps. So it's just something that is there. And I don't know, and maybe you do. And next furniture market, I hope I get an invitation to come as your guest so I can look around the furniture market just to see that sometimes markets are right in front of us, because professional Black women has the highest income and one of the most educated group of people in America.
Really?
Yeah, just do the numbers, run the numbers and look at it, and we'll purchase. Now, I want to push back on one thing you said about the masses. That's true, but make sure I say it right, Beverly Cleveland, Louis Vuitton, is that the name of it? They don't market to everybody. They have a select group on how they do things, And I very rarely see their product on sale. Maybe they do. But then lately, I saw where they could be refurbished in certain stores. Help me. What's that all about?
Well, the secondhand market for luxury goods is a huge market.
Really?
It's a huge market. And some people, they want it because it gives them access to something cheaper, but some people just love vintage design. Like if you look at classic Italian design and handbags and over time, how it's changed, like the classics still resonate, right?
Is it a sense of a status that if I have a certain bag on my arm, for those who know, and those who don't know, it doesn't matter?
I think that's definitely the case for sure. I mean, but also it's the reason why there's the fake market, with
right.
the bags that look exactly like the real thing, but from 2 feet. I mean, unless you just grab it and you're like, is this real? No,
you can't tell.
Nobody can tell.
But you taught me something the other day at lunch, and Bill, I'll pass it to you after this. And I went home and I told my wife on you. I went home and told on you, Kelly. I said that, I was having lunch with this gentleman today who was fascinating. And I asked him about furniture, and I'm not going to mention any furniture names because I don't want any pushback. And it says, well, when I was growing up, you got furniture that lasted forever and quality. And now my kids get these furniture in a box and they put them together. And you said to me, Odell, because I was complaining about the longevity of it, and won't be antiques. And you said, they're not designed that way. Can you talk about that for our customers who understand, who I didn't understand? And I think I'm the smartest, good looking black guy on the podcast today, but I didn't know that. And once you shared that with me and I shared it with my wife, we're like, he's right. You're right.
Well, I mean, and this kind of goes back to my original statement, which was when furniture was very regionalized, and now it's being homogenized. And so there used to be this feeling of heirloom quality that when you made something, it was meant to be passed from generation to generation, that you would carry your great grandmother's hope chest and she would pass it to her daughter.
I call it a cedar chest. You're right. It was a hope chest.
Right. And it's meant to collect things of importance throughout your life. It could be anything. It could be like yearbooks. It could be
hair that fell out.
Go ahead, Kevin. Pay Bill no attention.
Man, you can't do this to ADHD people. It's hard enough to stay on focus and stay on point.
We got 3 ADHD right here.
Yeah. And so there was this idea that you wanted to create something that would last generations. Now, furniture is like fashion, and fashion comes and goes. I wish it would come and go faster because then we'll have more turnaround. But, as it is now, a typical bedroom or occasional furniture or dining room furniture, it's not meant to, my kids are not going to have any interest in my furniture. And just like I don't have any interest in my grandmother's furniture. It's just, it doesn't work like that anymore. And it's kind of a shame in some ways, but the antiques market is still like, there's styles of furniture like mid-century modern, and it's kind of a commodity that goes up and down, like the classic pieces. Like, so there is still a market for this furniture, but it's not a mass market. And the internet has changed everything on that.
Exactly. Because when you do the internet, you were telling us the story on how you get rid of your samples and everything else. And I don't know if you want to get into that, but to build to his point, that my children, they want to get something that they could put together. They sit down and put it together and everything else, versus when we were buying furniture, we wanted something that's like, man, this is going to last forever. So that helped me a lot. I'm old, so I think I'm not interested in taking furniture out of a box that's like press wood, plywood type thing. And once you put the screws in it, it's great. But once you break it down, it's almost designed for one assemble and never move it on a moving truck.
Yeah. Or it ends up in your kid's fraternity house, or
yeah.
It doesn't. True. It's going to have another existence. It's just not going to be in a nice home.
No, it's not designed for that. Well, we're getting near the end here. Is there anything last that you would like to share, Kelly, before we close up?
It's just it's been a pleasure to be here with you guys, to visit with your puppy dogs.
Yeah.
But Kelly
came up to see
help us though, Bill and Kelly, entrepreneurs. A lot of people listen to our show, and it's a certain type who listen to us: entrepreneurs, mavericks, people who kind of deal outside the box. Kelly, what would you advise you would give entrepreneurs who have a vision? they have a vision and they know that this is what they're called to do, but they're working for someone else and they want to start off on their own, but they're afraid to really jump out and maybe they didn't have the safety nets that some of us have or didn't have. What advice would you give them to get started, or you would tell them to stay where they are?
Well, that's the ultimate question. And I think it really depends on where you are in your life. For me, when I was 22 and I decided to go to Asia, the risk was if I fail, I come home. Right. Worst case, I fail.
You didn't have family. You didn't have kids.
Right. And so if
a mortgage.
Right. And so there's different stages of your life. You have kids, you have mortgage, you have kids in college. You're less inclined to just jump off. But now the world has changed. And I hate this expression, but it's very applicable, which is this side hustle. Okay. You have 24.
I like that side. I like that hustle now. I like the hustle.
Well, so
Odell knows what that's.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 24 hours.
Talking my language, man.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I'm talking to college kids, I'm like, go all in. If you have a great idea, like stop what you're doing and go all in. Because there's no risk. Worst case scenario, you continue, you get your education and you get your 9-to-5 job and life goes on. But if you have a great idea, a great widget, a great something, go all in on it. And because it's never been a better time. I mean, I think of all the things that didn't exist if let's say that you were 22 years old and you wanted to, you had a great idea. You didn't have access to everything that these kids have now. Like, everything has been democratized. You don't have to go make a sample. You can go to one of Andy Zimmerman's mills downtown. What he calls it,
the factory.
The factory.
Yeah,
you can
the
make
forge,
you can go to the forge. You can make your prototype. You can put your prototype on the internet. You don't have to pay somebody to advertise it for you. You can put it on the internet. You have all these tools that people didn't have 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, to take your idea without creating a huge overhead, creating all this front side risk. You could do it. Now, a great idea is still a great idea, and product is paramount. I mean, if you have something of substance, I don't care if you're 20 or 50, go for it, but just evaluate the level of risk and the risk that you're willing to take at that point in your life. And I think the younger you are, the more I would just go all in. I mean, I would just triple down, borrow from the parents, take a loan, seek outside investment, do whatever it takes to make it happen. Whereas, later in life, maybe you don't want to take out equity in something that you have earned and that there's a danger of losing. So I think it's time and perspective.
Great.
But nothing. I mean, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. There's no substitute for hard work.
Yes, sir.
There's no easy path. Nobody's going to hand you anything. There's not a golden ticket. The best things in life come from earning them on your own through hard work.
Boy, that's a great advice. That's a great way to end the show. Say that again. Can you?
I can. I said there's no substitute in life for hard work, and there's nothing more satisfying than when you accomplish it. And so you just go as hard and as fast as you can.
You sure you haven't been listening to those preaching tapes, man? You sound like a preacher over here.
Okay, here we go. We're at the end. Okay, Kelly, thanks for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fun. That's the thing I like about podcasts, by the way. It doesn't matter what the topic is, because whenever you have engaged people talking, it's almost like a conversation. It's almost like you get to eavesdrop on somebody's high level conversation because you're sharing will.
Yeah, it's just a conversation. That's all it is. And when you get people that have life experiences like the three of us have, it's rich. I mean, there were stories that I wanted to say while you were talking, and we'll bring them out on another show. So,
well, I'll tell you the other thing, especially for somebody like me, it does make you cognizant of interrupting, because I'm like the worst. I'm like, I got an idea. I want to jump
all the time. We interrupt all the time. That's what we do.
Yeah, I want to jump in so badly.
Yeah, if you're a wallflower, this is not a good show for you.
Not at all.
Kelly, will you come back?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. We're gonna have him.
Yeah, because you guys advertise yourself as like opposites. He's the Republican and conservative, and you're the liberal, and I'm like the middle guy.
Yeah.
Okay, we need the middle guy.
We got to change the name from Odell and Bill to Kelly, Odell, and Bill.
Yeah,
the middle guy.
I'm the middle guy.
Middle guy.
Meet me in the middle. It's Kelly. In fact, that's it. I've just created my new podcast. Meet me in the middle. I'm the opposite of Common Ground.
Oh my God.
Coming to Apple, iTunes soon.
Find Bill and Odell online at thecommonground.show. This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. All rights reserved.
This podcast is brought to you by Yes Weekly, the Triad's largest circulated and best read weekly magazine. You can also find us online at yesweekly.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Yes Weekly, your trusted news leader for local arts, entertainment, music, food, and more for nearly 18 years.
Whether you're a big, medium, or small business, managing and growing the bottom line is important. Focus CFO brings the experience and financial acumen of a Fortune 100 Chief Financial Officer to your company at a fraction of the cost. P&L help, internal reporting processes, or any business transitions or events. Focus CFO will help you and your team have a CFO in your company's back pocket. Focus CFO. Learn more at focuscfo.com.